Hey, Lawino, you have such beautiful eyes. Are you single?
Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. No, I am not single, but I have been blessed with beautiful eyes, thank God. But I can tell you about a lady much like me whose eyes sparkled like the night sky.
When you hear about artificial intelligence, what comes to your mind? Many of us will think about robotics or science fiction related movies. Today, however, we speak about AI in the creative field as we sit down with Melisa Allela, who wears many hats and whose work has been able to be showcased all across the globe, including South Africa and France. Enjoy Melisa's story.
Dr. Melisa Achoko Allela is an interactive media designer and lecturer at the Technical University of Kenya. She also doubles as an illustrator, animator, researcher, and e-learning specialist. Her creative and research work explores the convergence of experimental animation and emerging technologies in storytelling.
Hadithi, hadithi. Hadithi, Joe. Hadithi, hadithi.
Her current focus is on how such technologies can be used to digitize works of African orature and thus contribute to safeguarding of intangible cultural heritage. She is the co-founder of Lesser Stories, an interactive media studio that interrogates how new and emerging technologies can be used to retell stories that richly exude African aesthetics and ways of telling. She is a winner of the Digital Lab Africa 2020 Immersive Realities category, recipient of the 2019 HIVA Cultural Heritage Seed Fund, and a 2018 Mawazo PhD Fellow. She looks forward to the tipping point moment for women in tech and their increased participation in the fields of animation and interactive media production. It is for these reasons she makes it to Globe Traktion with our host, Persil Telewa.
Hi, look at you. Oh my God. Look at you. Nice finally seeing you. And nice seeing you too. How is the going? All smiles.
All smiles.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for having us today. Asante sana.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you. So I came over so that you can tell me what you've been up to. Melisa, nice having you on set today.
Thank you so much.
What's your name? What do you do?
I'm Melisa Achoko Allela. I am an interactive media designer, educator, and creative technologist. I teach at the Technical University of Kenya. I also co-founded a studio called Lesser Stories, where I practice some of my work.
Growing up, where was, your village? Which school did you go to? And tell me about it.
Okay, so it's a long story. I was born in Mombasa, and then my family traveled quite a bit. So Mombasa, lived in Nairobi for a while, and then eventually lived in Kisumu for most of my life. I attended different schools. So for primary school, I went to a school in Kisumu called Victoria Primary School, where I had a lot of formal art education in that place. And then for high school, I went to Lower Girls High School, which is in Bondo. Yeah, and we also had an art program there, fortunately. And then post-high school, I went to University of Nairobi, where I studied graphic design. I wanted to do animation, but there was no university in Kenya that offered any animation program in the country. So the closest to animation I could get was graphic design at University of Nairobi.
Where did you even know that there was something called animation? From Luak Girls?
Oh, no. Yeah. No, much earlier. So this is an interesting story. How I even came into storytelling. When I was a child, like most children, you love watching TV. And growing up in the early 90s, telly used to start much later, like I think at noon. But there's like cartoons on TV. And also around the house, we always had a lot of media, like comics that my parents bought us. We also did a lot of art in the house, like just drawing as kids. And then I loved watching telly, essentially, and I was obsessed with animations. Then our TV got stolen.
Sorry.
Yeah, one time the TV just disappeared.
Yeah.
And what that meant was I had to find another way of entertaining myself. So this saw me getting stories from family visiting from a country. They had like the most fascinating stories to tell, you know, stories that you won't read in any book because they had them from a grandmother or great-grandmother. And also comics that we had in the house. So this was like just my main mode of entertainment for quite some time because there's no telly. And then one time in school, we had this assignment, I think it was class 5, where you're supposed to make a DIY TV with a carton box. And you make a long strip, like illustrations, and you reel them. So you tell your story with that.
Stuff will be moving on TV.
Exactly. So you just roll it, and all of the drawings you've made by hand. And I told a Disney story, which was, I think, Sleeping Beauty, which was odd because I knew these other tales that I'd been told by, you know, family from a country.
Village, yeah.
But I defaulted to Western storytelling. And then years went by. Of course, you know, there's another TV that was purchased. Remember, the TV was stolen. But this time round, I wasn't so keen on TV as a source of entertainment. I was more like, what can I sort of learn from TV? And there's a show called Japan Video Topics that was on telly then. And they had an episode that was talking about how animations are made, 2D animation, anime from Japan, of course. And I thought it was the most fascinating thing ever. And I was like, I want to do that. I'd like to learn how to do that someday. So I would say that that sort of is what sparked my interest in not just enjoying animation, but also wanting to learn how to create it, and even beginning to think, even if back then, just thinking, you know, as a child, I'd like to do this someday and create animations.
Wow. Tell me about your parents and more specifically your father. When they learned about you now getting into design and creativity, what was their response? How did they react?
Right. So, unfortunately, my father passed on when I was still quite young, when I was 13 years old. So we didn't get to have this kind of conversations with him. But I know he would have been a supporter of the arts, of the kind of work I was doing, even though he was a scientist. My father was a marine biologist. He was a founding director of Kenya Marine Fisheries Research Institute, so marine biology was his thing. But he also used to do a bit of, you know, drawing in the house, mostly like architectural plans and scribbling things here and there. And I remember moments when I'd be like, oh, Baba, teach me how to draw an aeroplane. And I'd be astounded that he could actually draw an aeroplane. So my mother, even though she's not like a fine artist, my mother cannot draw, but she used to try to teach me how to draw when I was very young. And when I was older, I liked to make fun of her and tell her, oh, Mama, you haven't changed your drawing technique. It's just the same things you used to draw when I was 5, and when I was 10, when I was 15, it's, you know, the same technique. But she provided us with so much art around the house, like art supplies. When my father passed on, life changed quite drastically for the family. We went through a lot of economic hardships. And what this meant was some of the comforts that we had become so accustomed to were no longer there. But what my mother ensured that we always had was, you know, something to visually express ourselves into media. Those felt pens, those crayons, those, you know, drawing material, those paints, you know, if you want to, like, she'll get it. Even though, you know, she herself is like walking long distances to get to work.
To get you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So she has been my main supporter regarding my key supporter regarding pursuing the arts. I remember in high school, back then we used to like select subjects. So you do, I think we had, was it 8 subjects about? So you do like a subject selection and you pick which ones you think would give you a good grade based on how you perform. And I used to do fairly well across all the different subjects. And I was asking her, so which ones do I pick? And she said, well, I know you like art, so whatever decision you make, I know, just keep art as a constant and pick anything else. So I picked my subjects and art was a constant. And then we did the KCSE examination, the results came out, I had an A- grade, which I was happy with. And what that meant was I had lots of options, many courses to pick from. And I went to her and I was like, okay, what do I study? Do I enroll for like dental surgery, the usual stuff, architecture, the expected subjects, which even my teachers were telling me, don't do design, because they knew I had this inclination towards the arts. They said, if you do design, you're going to be broke. You know, you'll be like a starving artist.
Yeah, so they tell you have to do medicine or, you know, do those old school courses.
So they give you, they sort of like try to encourage you or discourage you from pursuing like the arts, because I think they're watching out for you. They're like, oh, this is not going to work for you. But my mom, when I told her that, I really want to do animation, and going through the catalog of courses from different universities, was no animation, of course, there was design. And I wasn't very sure what this design offered, but I was like, this seems like it's the closest that I can come to animation. She said, you could select that. She was also like, not very sure. And I tossed a coin several times. It was a probability thing. I tossed a coin, I said, if it lands on head, it's going to be design. And it did 3 times.
Wow.
And so
design it was.
Design it was, but with an intention of doing more than design, doing animation and seeing where that would take me. Even if it meant learning animation on the side as I do, doing something creative, doing something with my hands was like something that was so important for me then. Yeah.
Tell me about your siblings. I understand you're the first child to your mom.
Yes.
Tell me about the rest of the siblings, and have they followed suit on your path?
So no, in different ways. So I'm the eldest of 6 siblings, 6 children. So I have 5 younger siblings. And my siblings have taken like very different...
How many boys, how many girls?
So I have 1 younger brother and 4 younger sisters.
You have such a beautiful daughter.
Thank you.
Tell me about her. Tell me about your family.
It's a very small family. I'm engaged to one Brandon Young, and we have a daughter. She's called Amori. She's almost 2. She'll be 2 next month. And she's very bubbly. She likes people. You know. She wants you to go. Yeah, she likes people. I'm teaching her to draw, because sometimes it looks like she's learning. She scribbles a lot. She likes scribbling faces. She's teaching me a lot as well, because the PhD was one thing, reading, and I've realized parenting is another thing altogether. So I'm always like on the internet researching and reading different things, and I think we're learning together in raising her. It's a process of just learning with her. And enjoying the moment, because they grow up so fast. It's only a short while ago she couldn't walk. Now she runs and demands things and knows exactly what she wants and where she wants to go. So it's just enjoying this early years with her and trying to give her a good start, because that's very important.
She's quite some energy, by the way. Yeah.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit further and deeper about AI, because people hear about AI, many people don't really understand what it is. And I think in your field you've been able to, bump into AI every other moment, every other time in your creativity. Tell me about AI.
AI is vast. There's so many different applications for AI, and my little corner regarding so many of the AI is in the creative spectrum, so the creative arts. So how I even landed into that was in my PhD I was investigating how new emerging tools and technologies can be used to retell African works of orature. So stories that were traditionally passed on by word of mouth, and many of them are nowadays long forgotten, but also the ways of telling rely so much on the performance, the spoken performance, the nonverbal exchange, using gestures in that kind of interaction, and being in a social setting with a storyteller, and also the co-creation between a storyteller and the audience. And when you record that experience in, say, as a movie, like in linear media, you lose all that interaction. You're no longer able to, interact with the storyteller because you're just watching it. You can't say hadithi, hadithi, and they say hadithi njo. Yeah. You can't co-create that.
Let's talk about the emergence of AI into Kenya and the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Not so much has been placed out there. Perhaps if I have to talk about it locally here, in terms of our ordinary or normal way of life, where do you think we can input or use AI to just make the innovation and life easier? So
again, I'll constrain my answer to the creative arts,
yes.
Because that's like my field of expertise, more or less. So the thing that artificial intelligence does is that it sort of enhances human ability, It allows you to do a lot more faster, quicker, with less, effort, for instance, and sometimes even with less skill, especially if you're using an already built system. So if you're an artist who, if you're a book illustrator, for instance, and you have, say, 10 clients, you'll be able to create work for up to 100 clients at the same time that you're creating for 10 clients. And how you do that is, say, if you're using a system like training your own custom AI image generator, So if you use like Stable Diffusion, for instance, which is an open source AI text-to-image generator, if you're to train that Stable Diffusion on your own images, right, you can then create output that looks similar to your style. So what this could do for you, enhancing your skill, is that you just draw a few, and then you can generate so many by simply prompting. You can replicate just prompting the system, and you say, okay, I want to create a boy who is kicking a ball. Type a proper prompt. A boy wearing blue short, white shirt, kicking a ball in a field, in a soccer field, and then it's going to output an image that is very similar to your style. That's if you trained it on your style. And I think that's where the opportunity lies for image generators, where artists can empower themselves by training systems on their own art styles. There is other opportunities, say, for pattern creation. If you're a textile artist and you want to create patterns for, your garments, AI image art generators can create those kind of patterns for you. If you're a creative writer, you can really improve the efficiency of your writing, improve even, just improve your writing style as well by using tools like ChatGPT that are, large language models that have like really great output just by default. And if you can even refine that further, it means you can make it respond as you would respond. So it's one thing to use the systems as they are without really putting much effort to customize them to what you naturally would do. It's another to, put in the effort to create a system that is also reflective of your realities and your identity. These systems usually have issues of like bias, and of issues of bias, issues of perpetuating some stereotypes as well. And if you're to own it, customize it, you can sort of move away from that.
Let's talk about Lawino project.
So the character is called Lawino, and she exists in actually 2 projects. One is called Sigana Tales, and then she's also sort of she's a prototype for another project that we're currently working on called ASUS Loom. So Lawino, the character, was inspired a lot by Okopi Bitek's character from Song of Lawino, who laments a lot. And her experience is if you've read the book, it was a high school text a long, long time ago. I just came across it. I came across it when I was in high school as well as in the library, and I was like, this old dusty book, and I was curious about it. And when I was doing my PhD, I picked it up again. I was like, oh, I like this book because it really exemplifies an issue regarding digitizing oral storytelling or, works of orature. Lawino is lamenting verbally. Lawino is talking to the audience, but we're not able to interact with her in any way, right? And her story is that her husband returned from studies abroad, and he detests now the ways of Acholi, so it's from Uganda. He no longer relates with being an Acholi man. He sees it as a very backward way of living, and Lawino is really stuck to that old way of life. So it's not just about that. I think it's almost like a metaphor of change. It's a book that was written in the 60s, when many African countries were like gaining independence.
Yes.
So it's also like a metaphor of those, those states of change, of transition, where do we hang on to old values and old traditions, or do we now embrace what has been, imposed upon us because of colonization and move forward with this? How do you even mix all this clashing ideas together? So I like that, first, that other aspect of Tongo Lawino about change, but also I like that, this book is telling, I show you this and you can see, you're supposed to be interacting with her, you're supposed to be talking with her. So for my PhD, part of because it was a practice-based PhD, I had like lots of experiments, but one of them was trying to digitize that interaction with Lawino. So you can interact with her, you can ask about a call, and she will, tell you something about a call based on how she usually converses in the book. Mm-hmm. So that's where the character, so that's where I picked the character from. I liked the name also. I was like, I'm going to stick with this name, Lawino. And so I moved beyond Song of Lawino from the inspiration for Song of Lawino and just to use the character now in my other projects, where now I'm using the character as a virtual storyteller, because I had like this smaller system that I had sort of set up in my PhD, one of my PhD research experiments. And I thought, well, I could use this system in a different context, and I could use it in a storytelling context. I talk about Orature all the time, and there's other kinds of stories that are being told. There's folktales, there's fables, there's myths, there's legends. And now I'd like Lawino, my virtual storyteller, to be telling these kind of stories.
How are you able, because she's 3D,
Yes.
are you able to tell her, like give her a command and be like, Lawino, show me the best Ugandan moves, for instance? Is she able to take action and dance?
No, not yet. She can't do that.
Okay.
She can't do it because first of all, the limitation with the kinds of animation we have. So we have like a small range of animations. And again, that's another project I'm working on regarding motion capture.
But again,
Yeah.
if you say that,
Yeah.
why is it that when I gave her that sort of command,
Yes.
you remember the command I gave her?
Yes.
Why did she notice that that command was inappropriate?
Yeah, so that's where her brain, that is where now the brain part of it comes in place. So like I said, now we already have, I described a system where we have the conversation service that has been implemented so that she can hear you. And then when she speaks back, you can also hear her. Now her brain is going to allow her to understand what you're saying and respond appropriately. So, and this is another avenue for AI, because ChatGPT, which came out recently, does this so well. Mm-hmm. It's just that people interact with ChatGPT, as just like this chat interface.
Yes.
But you can also create an embodied conversational agent, which is what Lawino is, like a 3D avatar that can interact and use ChatGPT as like the brain of the character. But now you have to tweak it further. You have to create a system that is not going to give you a response about anything, but you fine-tune that, response, so it's only constrained to storytelling. So that is why when you asked her if she was single,
Yes, you remember when you asked her. I was like, are you single?
she said that is
Inappropriate.
Yes, because she's supposed to be telling stories and not deviating from,
Talking about herself.
Yeah.
Wow. Hello, how are you? What's your name?
Greetings. I am doing very well, thank you for asking. My name is Lawino. It is a pleasure to meet you.
Tell me about your family and friends, Lawino.
My family consists of my husband, Okal, and our children. We live in a small village here in Africa. Our family is close-knit, then we spend a lot of time together.
Tell me about your husband, Okal. Does he provide for you and the kids?
My husband, Okal, is a hard worker who works very hard to provide for our family. I am so thankful for his dedication and devotion to us. He's always looking for ways to make sure that we have everything we need.
Hey, Lawino, you have such beautiful eyes. Are you single?
Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. No, I am not single, but I have been blessed with beautiful eyes, thank God. But I can tell you about a lady much like me whose eyes sparkled like the night sky. She was a young woman with a passion for life and all it had to offer. Despite her beauty and fun-loving nature, she was constantly plagued by a deep inner longing she could never seem to find the answers she was seeking. One day, as she sat by the riverbank wondering about her future, a gust of wind blew by, bearing with it the whispers of an old woman. The old woman told her a story of a love so strong it could transcend the ages, a love that could never be taken away, and a love that could break free of the chains.
How old was Aku?
Aku was only 22 when she heard the old woman's story, and it touched her deeply. Although she was not sure that such a love existed, she never stopped searching for it. In the end, her search led her to a man she believed could be the one she was meant for. She vowed to follow her heart and never turn back.
What question do you have for Lawino today? I hope you enjoyed Melissa's story. Make sure you catch us every Saturday at 8:30 p.m. Kenyan time only on KTN News. And remember, if you have a story you'd like to share with us, don't hesitate. Write to us through globetraction@standardmedia.co.ke or DM us on our social media platforms at Globetraction or at KTN News KE. You can also tap that follow button to me on my social media platforms at Pasil Telewa on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok for more of behind the scenes. But until then, I hope to catch up with you soon. Bye-bye for now.